Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. So there's always this talk about, dead cap. That dead cap money's a killer. The Rams were $80 million over the cap last year and made the playoffs, and were a bad call on Puka Nacua from making the NFC Championship. Why? McVay's great, Stafford's great. Tom Brady was a $35 million dead cap hit for the Bucs last year. They made the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers was a $40 million dead cap hit for the Packers. They routed the Cowboys and gave the Niners a real battle on the way to the NFC Championship. Philadelphia 2021, the Carson Wentz contract. Ooh, how punitive. No, they drafted Jalen Hurts and they've been just fine. Is that there's this myth. Oh, the Kirk Cousins contract. If Bo Nix can play, Denver's fine. They're absolutely fine.
Are you talking about the Russell Wilson contract right now? Okay, got it.
So you look at it and you go, oh my God. If Bo Nix can play, he's essentially free for 4 years, and I think he will work. He completed 77% of his college passes against like the best Pac-12 has been in my lifetime. So my point is there are, and I say this, Atlanta, this is why I defended Atlanta. Atlanta said, what you don't want to be is last year, the Vikings had to make a trade to get Josh Dobbs.
So
Atlanta's going, listen, Ritter was terrible. Cousins is the best on the market. At 8, we think we can get a quarterback, but we don't know. And by the time they got to 8, they did get calls from other people, and they thought, screw it. What if Kirk comes back and he's okay? And by Thanksgiving, we're like, Penix is way better in practice. So my take was, it is viewed as terrible, but it's a heavily weighted contract early. If you had to move off Kirk after a year and Penix is great, that's like rich people complaining about taxes. That is the best problem to have.
Well, so I understand what you're saying, but I actually don't. I think that what you said at the beginning is the opposite of what they did. I don't look at this as a big swing. I look at this as the ultimate hedge. I look at this as a team that post Matt Ryan has been in quarterback hell and said never again. Never again. And instead of, in my opinion, giving yourself the best chance to be great, you lowered your ceiling because you wanted to make sure the floor didn't bottom out. Because you to use both, you had two massive assets, your cap space and the 8th pick. They used them both on the same spot where only one guy can play. So if you really, and I don't think, here's the other thing, because I am a bit of a contract nerd as far as the fact that they structured Kirk's contract the way they did, where instead of guaranteeing the salary, they put it in signing bonus. You could have given him the same amount of guaranteed money, but made it easier to trade him in a year, and they gave him a fucking no-trade clause. So I don't think when they signed him 7 weeks ago, they thought they were drafting a quarterback. And if you really had the courage of your convictions in Penix, now maybe you're worried he's not going to be there, but I don't think a lot of people thought Penix wasn't going to be there at 8. Then use that money to make the rest of your team better. I think Atlanta was so scarred by Desmond Ritter that they're like, we're never going through that again. Like, we're just not.
And I don't, for the record, I was so scarred from divorce, I'm never getting divorced again. There are times in life, by the way, being awful at quarterback, Jay Glazer always says this, it is the most miserable thing in the league.
Correct. So and why did Raheem Morris? Raheem Morris was a coaching, hotshot's the wrong word, but like the youngest coach in the league. Like on this, what happened? He never got quarterback.
No quarterback.
And so then for a decade, he's grinding himself back. And I think he's probably like, never again. Never again. Like, I'm going to give myself a floor at that spot. So I understand that. And maybe I'm spoiled because the team I root for is competing for championships. I'm not even being a smartass.
And it's been, and the Chiefs and the Packers for most of my life have at least been B to B
Yes,
plus at quarterback.
right. The Chiefs never had the guy, but they had Trent Green, they had Alex. They weren't
Yes.
terrible except for a few years.
Hey, football fans, if you're looking to dominate your fantasy league next year, then we've got the channel for you. From the NFL draft through training camp in week 1 to Super Bowl Sunday, Fantasy Pros is the home of football content you cannot afford to miss. Subscribe today, and your team will be in championship form in no time.
But I'd like, man, if you're a Falcons fan, try to go be great. If you sign Kirk, I'll tell you, somebody asked me today who I thought won the draft, right? So I'm going to give you a wild take on that.
Okay.
I think you can make an argument the Giants won the draft because New England didn't take their trade. It's reported yesterday that the Giants offered 6 and next year's number 1 for the 3rd pick. And I'm like, oh, so they hoped to draft Drake May at 3, not add any weapons in the first round to trade the pick, and have Drake May, a 21-year-old with high upside, but who was erratic at North Carolina, put him behind that offensive line with those weapons. Guess what? I think that had they done that, they'd be drafting number 1 next year, and they'd be sending it to New England like Carolina just did. Like the fact that the Giants now have next year's number 1 this year. Maybe Drew Lock plays, maybe Daniel Jones plays, but at least he has a weapon. And then next year you try to go find your quarterback. That, I think New England turning that trade down was a mistake they'll regret. I think that you could have gone to 6, gotten Giants number 1 next year, and at 6 we know Minnesota is willing to give you 11 and 23, so you could have had 11 and 23 to add players, your first rounder and the Giants first rounder next year, start Jacoby for a season, and then that's what I would have done if I were New England. But New England's GM was auditioning for his job. He doesn't even have it yet, and the owner said, I want a quarterback, so I guess he's going to draft a quarterback.
Well, I had an executive in the league said, if you're the Giants, you are rooting for Bryce Young and Will Levis, because then the only other team that's guaranteed to take a quarterback is the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
So somebody said, he said to me,
oh, that's
you are
a great
rooting
point.
for Will Levis to hit and Bryce Young to hit if you're the Giants, because then it's like us and the Raiders need quarterbacks, and they'll be 2 good prospects. Shedeur Sanders, the kid Cam Ward at Miami, who's pretty interesting. There's a kid Notre Dame got a transfer who's pretty interesting.
No, and Quinn Ewers, people like him, and then there's one more that we're forgetting. That's the guy who's most likely to go number 1. I talked about it on the show today, so I see if I can remember it. But I was just about to look like, hold on a second, who are the teams that could
Raiders, Titans.
Oh, Carson
Giants.
Beck is the other one, the kid from Georgia that people yeah.
I don't think he's a top 5 pick. I think he's he's Georgia good.
I think you're probably right. But if you look at, I was going to look through the NFL, like teams that, Buffalo, no, Miami, no. The Jets are a maybe if Aaron gets hurt. If Aaron gets hurt, you know what I mean? The Jets are a maybe. New England, no. Baltimore. Cleveland is a maybe. I don't know that's a rough spot, man. But Pittsburgh's a maybe. So there's a bunch of maybes, but there's not a lot of definites. To your point, like because everybody, when 6 quarterbacks go in round 1, everybody thinks they have a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like there's just, you mentioned, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. And they'll at least give those quarterbacks till Thanksgiving of the 2nd year. And so this executive said, the bottom line, if you're the Giants, he said, I don't think Will Levis is going to work. He said, I think Bryce will. He liked Bryce. He said, listen, Bryce is talented. He's not as big as you'd like, but they got him weapons. They got him a really good wide receiver. He's like, Bryce will move the chains. They'll stick with him. But he said, the Giants and the Raiders, that's it. That you're absolutely, and they're neither one's going to be any good. He said, right. So those are your top 2 potential picks.
And for one of those teams, Tom Brady will probably play for him, so they won't need. I mean, he wants to play football so badly.